Aloha fans to the scuttlebutt talking the college football national championship game. Please hit the thumbs up and let's get into it. Let's start our title game deep dive by laying out the matchups, comparing quarterbacks, running backs versus linebackers, receivers versus secondaries, and offensive lines versus defensive lines. According to ESPN, Indiana quarterback Fernando Mendoza versus Miami defense. Cignetti brought Mendoza to town to lead the show in 2025. It was easy to be intrigued by the addition, but it was almost impossible to see what was coming next. After a decent first couple of games, Mendoza has produced at least an 89.6 total QBR in 10 of his past 13 games. He's the nation's leader with a 90.2 total QBR for the season. He initially found fifth gear, starting with a 73-0 win over Indiana State in week 3, and that momentum carried over in a 21 for 23, 5-touchdown performance the next week. The Heisman hype then kicked into major gear with Indiana's comeback win over Penn State, a tough day for the offense that ended with a miraculous touchdown drive. Mendoza was evidently saving his most ridiculous stats for the postseason. In his first 2 CFP games, he threw more touchdown passes than incompletions. He's 31 for 36 for an almost perfectly controlled 369 yards and no interceptions, and not including sacks, he has rushed 10 times for 86 yards. He hasn't had to do a ton. His teams were winning by so much so quickly, but he times every pass almost perfectly and trusts his receivers to make tough catches. And when he's slightly late on a ball, he simply puts extra juice on it and gets it there anyway. Mendoza has become so comfortable in his reads that he has also failed to read pressure quite as well of late. In the past 3 games, he has thrown well, but he has also taken 7 sacks with a sack rate of 10.6% and a 31.8% sacks to pressures ratio. If you can get to Mendoza, you can get him down, and almost no one brings quarterbacks to the ground as well as Miami. The Hurricanes are 5th in pressure rate and 10th in sack rate, and like Mendoza, they have raised their game in this regard. Even after recording only 1 sack of Ole Miss's Trinidad Chambliss in the semis, their sack rate is 9.8% in the CFP. Heatherman hasn't had to blitz much to generate that pressure either, thanks to the absurd work of Bain and Messidor. Miami has leaped from 52nd to 6th in defensive. Defensive play was huge for the Hurricanes as they were stabilizing down the stretch, and it has come through repeatedly in the playoff. The advantage goes to Indiana offensive line versus Miami defensive line. Hot damn, this is an incredible matchup, maybe the best of the entire game. Indiana's offensive line has combined for 171 career starts, about 34 per man. Only Evans started fewer than 28. The Hoosiers' offensive linemen commit few penalties, and for the season, they've allowed just a 26% pressure rate and a 14% run stuff rate. IU almost never moves backward. The Hoosiers have seen only 18% of their snaps gain 0 or fewer yards in the CFP, easily the fewest overall, and their ability to create third and manageable has been their greatest superpower in 2025. Miami's defensive front creates loads of negative plays. Bain and Messidor have combined for 32 tackles for loss, 19 run stops, 19 sacks from 123 pressures, 5 forced fumbles, and even an interception and 2 breakups. Bottom line, the Canes is disruptive in the middle. This is a stars versus stars matchup. The advantage here is a push. Indiana running backs versus Miami linebackers. In Muhammad Tour and Wesley Vicente, Miami has a strong combination of linebackers. Tour is the sideline-to-sideline guy who makes tackles on a team leading 14% of his snaps. Vicente, meanwhile, is a bit more dangerous in coverage, and about once per game, he seems to show up in the backfield and hit someone really, really hard. Roman Hemby and Kalen Black can generally hit back. Indiana's senior running back duo has combined for 25 carries per game with a dynamite 50% success rate. The Hoosiers are 10th nationally in rushing success rate. in their first and standard down success rate. While the offensive line obviously has a lot to do with that, both Hemby and Black average 3 yards per carry after contact. They are huge reasons the Hoosiers are never off schedule. The advantage here is Indiana. Indiana receiving versus Miami secondary. For Miami, it was a skeleton crew by the end of the Ole Miss game, but Frederic should be back. Brown is still uncertain and Lucas out for the first half. Miami should have a strong lineup with steady safeties Zach Poyser and Jacoby Thomas, corners Frederic and Ethan O'Connor, and badass Keontae Scott at nickel. Scott has 3 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, and a forced fumble in the CFP. He also snagged the 72-yard pick 6 that changed the Ohio State game. He is Miami's 3rd best defender after Bain and Messidor, according to ESPN. Indiana's receiving core has become nearly the best in the country. Elijah Sarrett, Omar Cooper, and Charlie Becker has raised their game. With Sarrett and Cooper healthy again, Becker and tight end Riley Nowakowski have given Indiana too many playmakers to account for. Advantage here is Indiana. Miami quarterback versus Indiana defense. The Hurricanes run on standard downs and pass on passing downs, and Beck's main job has simply been to keep the chains moving and the defense off the field. Miami has topped 40 points only twice in its past 12 games and has averaged just 19 offensive points per game in the CFP, but the Hurricanes' average time of possession is 5th nationally, and they've averaged an impressive 37 in the past 2 games. The Hoosiers do a beautiful job of containing opposing offenses, positioning themselves in a way that drives specific decisions from quarterbacks and pouncing on any mistakes. They also are almost disturbingly well prepared. Advantage is Indiana. Miami offensive line versus Indiana defensive line. Okay, this is a big one. As with the trench play when Indiana has the ball, this is a matchup that both teams tend to win, and Miami absolutely has to win. Indiana ranks 2nd in stuff rate, and they're 7th in sack rate, despite sending more than 4 pass rushers only 20% of the time. The tackles have combined for 10 sacks and 19 run stuffs, uniquely disruptive totals for interior linemen. Still, Miami has a devastating pair of tackles, and the interior line is experienced and sturdy. Miami hasn't moved the ball with extreme efficiency in the CFP, but the Canes have gained 0 or fewer yards just 26% of the time. Only Indiana's percentage is lower. And running behind Bell has generated major playoff success. One of the main problems for Miami in this game is that everything the Hurricanes need to do well to win is something Indiana also does really well, if not better. The advantage here is a push. Miami running backs versus Indiana linebackers. Like the rest of the Hoosiers lineup, Indiana inside linebackers. Hardy, Fisher, and Jones have been fantastic in 2025. They've combined for 35 tackles for loss, 18 sacks, 36 run stops, 3 interceptions, 9 pass breakups, 2 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries, and a defensive touchdown. Mark Fletcher Jr. and Charan Brown, however, have been the best running back duo in the CFP. Fletcher has done most of the work. He has generated by far the most yards from scrimmage of anyone in the 2025 CFP. Fletcher has averaged almost 7 yards in the CFP. A lot of his work has come after contact too. Brown has proved incredibly useful with his ability to generate tough yards, especially in short yardage situations. Miami can only succeed if their line gives them opportunities. I'm picking Fletcher and Brown against Miami linebacking core. Advantage is Miami. Miami receivers versus Indiana secondary. Beck has basically leaned on 4 receivers in the CFP: Keelan Marion, Malachi Toney, CJ Daniels, and everyone else. Matchups definitely determine who Beck leans on, but Indiana makes favorable matchups awfully hard to find. Pons is one of the most celebrated corners in college football, and for the season, Jamari Sharp has allowed fewer long completions and a lower QBR than Pons. the Nickelbacks have combined for 10 interceptions and 9 breakups. Beck could feasibly end up with a pretty high completion rate, as short passes are a big part of Miami's game, and Pons and Sharp have allowed a 64% completion rate on passes 10 or fewer yards downfield. It's really hard to nibble your way to success against the Hoosiers, and if Miami doesn't take some risks to hit a big play or two, it's going to be hard to score enough points. The advantage is Indiana. Out of these categories, as Indiana is the clear favorite, that tells you the favorite and where Miami must absolutely thrive to close the gap. Indiana has been the story of this wild and unpredictable 2025 season, and it would almost seem like an error of fate if someone besides Cignetti, Mendoza, and the Hoosiers lifted the national title trophy. But I guess we will see. Okay, team, mahalo for hanging out. Please hit that like and subscribe, and come back to follow college football rumors all season long. Aloha.